second before I go on camera. They give you. Welcome everybody to a special episode and another episode of Raw Live. I'm your host Frankie J, and with me, my becoming official co-host. He's still on probation, but he's here anyways. Like always, the one and only Tio. Tio, welcome.
Got to be on my best behavior in the first 60 days here.
And like I stated previously, we do have a special guest tonight. Rich, my friend, good friend, longtime friend from years and years ago. Rich, he's a comedian professional here in the Buffalo Niagara region. He participates a lot in comedy locally, and in my firm belief, he should be professional and out traveling the world, being paid tons of money. But anyways, he's here with us today for a special interview. Rich Lambo. I'm gonna invite him up now, and we'll dive right into the show because I don't want to lose any time, because usually we do the short half-hour shows, and I figured for half hour, what fun is that? We got to do a full-length show, and there he is, the one and only Rich Lambo. Welcome to Raw Live again for the third time, I believe, in its existence here on Earth. But welcome, thanks for spending some time with us here tonight.
It's a Raw regular.
Yep, it looks like Rich might have frozen, or his mic may be muted. It could be one or the other.
If he's good at holding that pose for that long.
I should have told him that put the do not disturb on your phone, and that way no calls or text messages will interfere with your production. I always forget to tell people that. That's on me, so sorry about that. I think he's on here. Invite him to video and see if we'll try again, folks. That's the technology and the hiccups that come with it. And there he is. Rich, let's see if we can hear him now. If he's got
hello there.
All right. Woohoo!
Aren't you glad I dressed up for the show? Dressed up nice here.
Yeah. He's here officially. We'll play your entrance.
Hey Frankie, hey Todd. Thanks for clicking.
Yeah, we're
good to
here.
Click with you.
Click with us. This is actually the first time that you two have met. Rich has been on with us a couple times, like I said in the past, and this is the first time that Tio got to the level to be on air with us. So
sweating a little.
Hey, from my view, he's got the chat boxes right over his face, so the word Frankie is tattooed across the bridge of your nose. So who knew, right?
Well, the good thing is to get rid of that on the right of your screen, you'll see a little shape of a phone, and you can get rid of that on your side so you don't see it at all.
Okay. Oh, hello. There he is. There's the man.
There we go.
It's been a while. I have so much to ask you because, like me, we have this ability to, within 6 months, we can create 500 memories that people will never believe happened. And that's the kind of people Rich and I am. That's probably why we clicked. I rode the short bus, and for valid reasons. Todd has a permanent pass to the short bus, and Rich, you're the smart one in the group. So what's been going on? How you been doing, and what do you got cooking over there?
I used to hang on to the back of the bus. Remember the winter when it was snow? You'd hang on. What did you guys call that when you hang on to the back of a car and they pull you down the street?
Oh, what was that called? I don't know.
We called it hopping. Some people called it pogying.
Pogying?
Oh, yeah, pogying. Yeah. I got funny stories about that. Yeah.
Some people called it fatal because if you rolled the wrong way, you'd get hit by like a milk truck or something.
Oh, we used to do that on rollerblades.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good.
That's ballsy. You want, lose half your skin, fall on your knees.
Yeah, so the comedy world's, still clicking along. The world's all the way open and shows are full tilt. And it was a fun summer doing the Western New York Fringe Festival, the Buffalo Fringe Festival, at various venues at, various days of the week. And that was cool. We did improvisational shows, kind of like Whose Line Is It Anyway with that particular group. And then another
comedy I had a hard time understanding.
Why?
Is that style of comedy?
Which version? The American one or the British version? Because there's a few. Just the one with Ryan Stiles and.
Well, the one where I actually, you got me on stage at that comedy club, and I had absolutely no clue what language you guys were speaking.
Oh, well, that was with Comedy Sports. That was a different group.
Yeah.
And that one's a little more, G-rated, and they do a good job. They're franchised around the country, and we were talking gibberish, right?
Yeah.
So someone must have been trying to tell you something like, say if I was trying to tell you in gibberish, I want you to go out to the compost pile and douse it in gas it, light it on fire. So I might go, so in some kind of a particular gibberish style.
That's what
but we would try to convey stuff. Yeah, it's quite confusing. Much of your audience has probably jumped out the window based on what just happened.
Yeah, you got to be tuned in.
Well, I was tuned in enough to know that I had no clue what the hell they were saying, and I had bright lights on me, and I couldn't see the audience, because when you have bright lights in your face, you can't see nothing.
Yeah.
So
well, go ahead and try it.
Doing what I do.
Why don't you convey a message to T.O. and I, and we'll try and guess what you're trying to tell us. Like, don't use words. You can use a little body language. It is a nonsensical language, but
I can't say any words.
No, just get into the Shanta. You can kind of fake a foreign language, like if you were to fake, Russian and French. If you wanted to combine Canadian and Portuguese, you go, So go ahead and try it, and Tio and I'll guess what you're telling us.
Okay.
Be animated.
You know the person, the ball, the foot.
He's saying words. You got to do it without words.
See, I can't.
It's totally nonsensical.
Okay.
But each it about. Oh, your ratings just plummeted.
Womp womp womp. So you got and then I can't. It's not.
That was pretty good.
What
you said climb up the beanstalk and grab the loot. I got that.
That was awesome. I can't believe you actually got it.
But yeah, that was. Oh yeah, you want?
I can't. My kind of comedy. I'd rather just go up to the stage and be like, "Hi, I'm Frankie, and I'm from Buffalo, and I'm divorced, and I like the Bills." I think people would laugh at that for an hour.
Yeah, well, we have to speak in a language that people clearly understand in most cases. There was another show I did, and it was with another group. It was formerly known as the Francis Bacon Experiment. And he changed names. The guy who runs it, his name's John Kehoe. He's very creative. And he's a trip. He started the group, the Francis Bacon Experiment. And then somewhere along the line, he was doing the Rocky Horror Picture Show Shadowcast, where they dance in front of the stage. And didn't the darn thing take off? It went, and they were all over the country, and they performed, and they're like a sought after group to do this. So he says, okay, let them run with the Francis Bacon name. So he had to think of the new name. The name he came up with was the Calabash Troupe. Calabash is kind of like a Sherlock Holmes pipe. But in true fitting form to that, the show that he booked at the Buffalo Fringe Festival is called the Green Show. So one guy in the show was drinking. One guy was smoking weed, and one guy was high on mushrooms.
Oh, boy.
And one guy was the straight man. And I took that job, the hardest job, to try to weave all the scenes together. So when the person took a couple more mushrooms, he kind of turned it to mushrooms. So we had he admitted that after, although he did fine. But that was kind of wild, performing outside on, in downtown Buffalo on a porch of a big mansion, which is way different than, being on a comedy club or on a different type of stage. So, fun stuff, comedy clubs and open mics are fine. And I did that for a long, long time. But finding these other creative things to perform is definitely the vibe. And when they pay you, it's even better.
Yeah, if you get paid. That's a question that I want to ask you, because in a few previous episodes here, Tiano and I have been digging into a lot of what's going on trending wise as far as the transgender population. I call Trans America, and all this stuff going on. Comedy. a lot of comics, and we all know, like your Andrew Dice Clay, your George Carlins, those people that used real life and their real emotion sometimes to create their their bit. How has comedy changed? I mean, how much more cautious are you even preparing, let alone performing with this whole movement and this whole change in the way we have to live? What's your take? What being behind the scenes as a comedian, how has that changed the whole playing field?
When I was teaching the writing classes and had to have new performers, and sometimes they just want to run up there and spill it out. I'm going to talk about this or my view on this, but it really has created a platform. See, previously, especially in stand-up comedy, there really wasn't the arena for people to talk about many different issues and different categories. So the performance artists were able to do that. There's a place called PS 122 in New York City, and that's where you had the very few, say, transgender performers that were out there. There weren't a lot, and they didn't have an arena. They were not at comedy clubs. And I'm talking, in the 90s, and it wasn't happening. So now the forums come around and been there, whereas the antithesis to that, you can't go up on stage and, even kind of make a mild joke or blunt joke because the people are, tuned in. I remember I was in a comedy contest, oh boy, quite a few years ago, probably in 98 at the Tralfamadore Cafe in downtown Buffalo. And there was a club attached to it downstairs, Club Marcella, which had all the drag shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And a couple comics referenced it, and they didn't have a good insight, and they weren't like having a cooperative stance on it. It was a little more assertive or negative, or could be offensive, and it bombed. It failed. So they were improvising that in a contest. So, I tell people, if it's your venue and arena and you have a unique point of view, you can go with it. And there's a lot of sensitivity and misunderstanding. I mean, Eddie Murphy's Raw special, no one could go on stage and really
no way
do that now.
So do you feel like you have to censor a lot of material these days? Just think so you don't get the hecklers?
Yeah, not as much censor, but you have to be super, creative. And you really can't, believe it or not, in the comedy clubs now, violate the Civil Rights Act ordinances in many aspects. I mean, there are venues and arenas to do that, but you have to be super, super aware. And you have to kind of win the fight together on those subjects and not be, like I said, the antithesis to that. So, I mean, you could have some metaphoric reference within a bit and reference a character that has a opposite stance there and utilize it, but you just can't go out and say, down with this or down with that. Save that for politics. We need to put something down at the top.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, I want to say thanks everybody joining in. And if you're just now joining in, we have professional comedian and my good friend from years and years ago, Rich Lambo, on today. So those of you who were just kind of catching up, and he's letting us know his feelings on this whole transgender thing and comedy and whatever. But I actually wanted to throw some input in there because you watch these, comedians, and there's got to be some point where you can script your show, but there's some point where you get out there and you got to feel the crowd and feel if they're punching on it, like wrestling. I was watching that show Young Rock. I've been addicted to that with Dwayne Johnson, and he grew up with these wrestlers from the 80s, Andre the Giant, Big John Studd, Junkyard Dog, Iron Sheik, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan. Back then, his father, even Rocky Johnson, they were actually paid to do bits that were racist. I mean, plain out racist. I'm talking, fried chicken, watermelon, bananas, all kinds of stuff, and they can't do that now, obviously. And that's how much in 30 years has changed. So for me, as funny as I feel I am sometimes and people say I am, I would be straight scared to go out on stage and afraid to be a comedian right now.
It's a boxing ring as soon as you step on the stage, because honestly, everybody's against you, correct?
Right away.
You're trying to win them over.
Yeah, it doesn't take long to lose them, and they'll make a quick judgment. Like when you look at magazines, you look at magazines pretty quick. You'll give each one maybe a 3-second attention span, and you seem to move on for more than you actually, pick up, look at, and maybe buy.
Mm-hmm. What drives a comedian?
There's
usually a car, but
a lot of them will say, "Oh man, we're a mixed up bunch," or we're dysfunctional or anxiety, and it really does kind of provide a forum. I've seen people come on stage where they were so nervous off stage or had so much anxiety, in the stage was almost like a fish tank where they could step on, then they could breathe. And with that, I've seen great comedians who stuttered step on stage and speak flawlessly. People who had Tourette's and lock up, be able to go on and perform, physically seamlessly. So it provides this a very unique corridor of the brain to step out, and you're exposing your everything. I mean, it's you and a mic and a stand, or you and a stage. So the vulnerability's there, and quite frankly, most people with some dysfunction or anxiety had been vulnerable somewhere in many ways along the line for many years, and that is a forum to step out for them that's safe. And they can talk about their views. And
are you talking to the people that are clearly have cerebral palsy going out there and being comedians?
No, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, straight up making fun of themselves.
Not particularly. I've seen that. I had people take my writing class that had, like I said, Tourette's or in a wheelchair. And the one girl, Julie, was hysterical. She'd come up in the wheelchair and roll up and look at the mic way up on the stand and grab it. And then she grabbed the microphone stand. She goes, "Is this my comedy class or my pole dancing class?"
So she'd start right on.
And it just hits.
Like that Josh Blue is really good at that.
Yeah.
Who?
Yeah. Josh Blue. He's a comedian. He's with cerebral palsy, I believe. And he's really good.
Is he the one that has the real bent up arms that look like cloven hoofs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. I think the most rewarding thing I ever did, probably with comedy, other than my own, accolades, was to work with the Wounded Warriors Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a group bus, and it was actually from Rochester, and they came to Buffalo, and they came in on and wow, what a group of guys they were. They were quirky and funny and unique and eclectic and blind and missing legs and service dogs. And one guy wore a bathrobe. And number one, to gain the trust of those guys, to put those guys on a stage and then to talk about what they've been through. It was a whole afternoon, and it was so rewarding. And it was, it was part of the, a group that I forget the name of the title of the guy that ran the program. It was like a combat, resuscitation diversion program or something. They had a unique title. And so again, we're dealing with guys that were through some stuff. There was just particularly guys in this
stuff you don't even want to know about. I mean,
yeah. So to hop on stage and talk about small, pillows on airplanes and hiring waitresses with smaller hands so the drinks look bigger in a nightclub. Those are the old cliche jokes and stuff. But we all have a story, we all have a story to talk about, and we can make light of it. And sometimes making fun of ourselves is therapeutic, and it is a safe environment that you control. So, sure, there's hecklers, or sure, you could touch on a nerve, but I think your tactfulness is what navigates you to the end of that. It's a lot of work.
Heckled? Have you ever been?
Oh, sure, yeah. I remember. Well, I remember one in particular. Yeah, well, they threw pizza logs at me. No,
what a waste of good food.
Yeah, this particular show, I was pretty new. I can remember it vividly, and I was the host of a contest. It was sponsored by a beer manufacturer, and I was the host. So I had to go up and, keep the show going. Well, they told me to stretch. And I was pretty new at comedy. Maybe I had 10 minutes, and they said, stretch, longer. So I was kind of riffing, and I wasn't doing so great. And I was up there, and I remember I started to lock up, and I said, give a round of, and I said, instead of applause, I said, l'applause. And I was talking about the hockey game that where Buffalo was playing, and I said, Ottawa. So the audience quickly, at least one guy turned, and then there was a skee ball game at this particular establishment. It was like a sports bar in Batavia, New York. And I had some tickets from the skee ball, and a guy yells out, why don't you trade some of those tickets for a joke that's actually funny? Wow. So he just, blasted me. So yeah, and then, and you got a couple choices, which
you answer back,
yeah. The smart
like that
thing,
wife guy. That wife guy.
And some people are brilliant at it. You can fight with people, which isn't good when you're from out of town and everyone there's, the best thing to do, they say, is to repeat the heckle. So
I learned that
everyone can hear it.
Of course.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, wait, hey, hang on. I got to trade some of these tickets for a joke that's actually funny. So hang on. Let's see. How about 3.5 tickets? Do you want a 3.5 ticket joke, or would you prefer something longer? Or hang on. Do you need something a little smaller? Can you relate to maybe 1.5 tickets? Is that why you have to yell and, emasculate me? So you can fight with them a little bit, but I think you can make friends with them, and sometimes they just have to get thrown out.
There's a way, like that Rife guy, and some people, you can tell it when people pop at him, they're like, they mean it almost. And then he'll have a way and an ability, which really you can't teach. You have that ability to be able to come right back with something. And he does, and he has that ability. That's a hard form of comedy when you're going in and using the crowd as your bit for the night. You got to go in and just right away start poking at the crowd and that's the kind of comedy I enjoy watching, because I like the improv on your feet, not so scripted thing. And and that's where my question led earlier, like with everything you just said, how big is your inner circle really in your arena? Like how big do you keep your inner circle with all this stuff?
It's not very big.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, you don't let too many people behind the curtain of what you do and how you do it. Not that it's brilliance, but it's a language that not a lot of people speak. And I was reacquainted with someone who I worked with for years and years in comedy yesterday, and it was just like picking up that gibberish, and we could speak in a language that we really understood. And that's a really good question, with your inner circle, and then with being, like this, with such a shield of when you step on stage, you have to, relate to everyone then. And that's a whole nother thing. If there's, one person in the audience who's not enjoying it, it's like, what's wrong with them? Why is that? I remember one time I was on stage at Comics Cafe, and he wasn't laughing. He wasn't enjoying it. I kept going to him. So I'm going to get this guy. So the show didn't matter of, 212 people. It was him. And I kept working on him, and I did fair, and then I finished. Well, when I ran off stage, I kind of, smacked him on the shoulder, and when I hit him, he went, oh, and he went, I just got a tattoo on that shoulder.
Oh, man.
So maybe he was in pain. So I smack him. Well, at the end of the night, I'm standing outside, and he walks by me, and the thing that came out of my mouth was, hey, I went, good times. And he went, yeah, good times. So I didn't win him over. Didn't win him over.
Sometimes people just can't be won over, And I guess that'll lead into a really good question. And people ask us all the time, like, what one piece of advice now would you give somebody that is boldly crawling up your ass saying they want to be a comedian? This is what they're going to do. They're dead set on it. They're taking the courses. They're showing up, and they're dead set on being a comedian, because we all have the people that say they're going to do something and don't, or start and stop, whatever. If you were to waste any energy and give them any advice, like one piece of advice, what would you give them?
Probably the best advice is pieces of advice that I'd gotten, read about, seen, heard, or things that worked. I suppose, like, for an athlete, there's a certain amount of skill and natural born talent. For, maybe a chef, they have to learn and recipe, but there's a certain amount of talent. But as far as advice, the successful path, well, the first thing I learned early on, and this is weird how it came up, to be successful in comedy, it takes about 7 years to make it as a headliner. I mean, it takes
almost a decade.
Yeah, you could either be a doctor and go to school and do that, or you could be a comedian, and it takes about equal amount of time. Yeah,
got that, Tio? Taking notes over there.
Yeah. You have to go to the open heart surgery open mic over at the ECMC, on Tuesday night.
Put in the work.
Yeah. But the 10,000 hours scenario, reading books, going to the clubs, talking to people. As far as advice, in the number one piece is always get stage time. You can think about, say, arts or painting or be a art history teacher and talk about it and be part of the arena and appreciate aesthetically art. But until you put a brush to canvas, you're not going to be a person who paints a masterpiece. So you need the stage time. And, I'd gone back and forth with different forms, from stand-up and improv and writing for other performers and street performing, and I never really found exactly which medium I wanted. I went from, say, if it was an artist, from painting to sculpture to drawing with oils and watercolors, but I'm pretty good at all of them, but I mastered none.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's the same with these people that all want to become podcasters, right?
Good example.
Everyone wants to be a podcaster, but when it comes down to it, do you want to be a podcaster? Do you want to do a show, or what do you want to do? How far are you willing to go with it? And you have to make that decision. It doesn't happen overnight. I've been building an audience for, Jesus Christ, 5 years almost.
Yeah.
And
you have to show up and put yourself out there.
When there's nobody watching, you still have to do it.
Yeah.
And I pretend everyone's watching, because you never know who is watching or who's listening. And that's the way I kind of look at this whole podcasting thing. If I was to give advice to someone podcasting, either you're going to do it or you're not. Make that decision first, and then do the research, do the work. And this studio didn't build itself. I mean, I have a studio in my living room. I'm not using headphones. I mean, we're in a studio environment, but it's been built over time. For you've been doing this over 2 decades.
Yeah, quite a while. When I started doing comedy, there was no internet, if you want to think of it that way. I remember going to Barnes and Noble. Oh, Richard Pryor was number one. I remember watching his special in 1979, and we had HBO, and I didn't quite understand it, but I knew it was great. And, oh yeah, that's when Pryor was in his heyday, and he would do these bits, and I knew, he was saying certain words I couldn't say at school, but I was going on the playground at school in 5th grade and recreating some of the bits like he did. And it was fun. I remember the lunch aides would stand there on the playground with their arms folded and go, "He ain't right," And then and even as even as a performer, you go through different influences, and I had my different stages. Just like, again, an artist will have their different stages, and where Robin Williams was just a big influence in what he was doing, and that's where my comedy teacher says, he goes, not a lot of comics are jumping off the stage and going out in the audience like you. He says, why don't you look into improvisational comedy, improv? So I discovered that's the thing I'm good at. Like Ohtani, is he a better pitcher or a better batter? Or a better...
Or both.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Derek Jeter.
Or none right now.
I mean, the Hall of Fame Yankee, Derek Jeter. Everyone knows Derek Jeter. No. He was not that good at baseball. I told this to Todd before on a previous show. He was not that good at baseball, even at the pro level when he first came out of the gates. What he was good at was selling his looks, his charisma, his confidence, selling his cockiness. And really, he ended up becoming the captain of the Yankees, but he really wasn't as amazing at the game itself. He was good at the selling part. You have to sell yourself and, play the, whatever they call it, like in wrestling and comedy, you got your language and you got your kayfabe. Is that
your persona?
Yeah.
His persona, his consistency.
Correct.
Many things. And some people just have a natural aspect. Like, One time in college, I met Bill Clinton, and the guy just had some. When you shook hands with him, you looked at him. In some comics, I'll see that. Go, man, of the 300 people I taught, I said they're a natural. They got the natural look,
yeah.
and I knew didn't quite have that as much as a stand-up. I said, geez, I can't, pull the room in like they. And you do what you're better at. So that's why I went more towards the improv and the improvisational, like dinner theater shows, like the train robbery shows and such. So
that's cool.
Yeah, that was a good question, Theo. If anybody out in the audience that's here live with us wants to ask Rich any questions, by all means, text in a quick question. I'm definitely reading and looking out for them. If anybody out there listening outside the app has a question, definitely go to rawlive.com right now, and you can shoot us a message that I'll get right away and become part of the conversation. But so Rich, with everything that we've talked about so far, I guess the question I want to ask is what are you looking forward to, in the future, like things that are coming up personally or professionally? Like, what are you looking forward to in the next, say, decade, if you were to able to kind of project what you got coming? Because we never know what's going to happen, but.
Yeah, you really don't. It's funny. I've been on the ssa.gov website looking at the chart of when I can retire and how much I'll get.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
And I said, well, if I say 59 and a half, I can play with the 401k, but I get I guess you look ahead. And I decided that when I retire, I only need three things. I need a diner, I need a Rite Aid, and I need a dive bar. Right?
Hey, so, that's a good list. Better than mine.
That's it. I got all three things I need. And, I think looking forward to, I do kind of do the math of, say, when I'll retire. And some of the performers in Western New York improv that I'm in are retired people. It was funny. One guy was mentioning Monday, he says, I'm going to go back to work because I'm bored. So he performs a fair amount of comedy, acting, commercials, improv. We even have some other cool things going on with some art festivals, and yet, he gets bored. So creative people always need, stimulation. We always need our brains to get, toggled a bit. And it could be different arenas. I mean, there's so much online, or I'll buy, comedy albums or look at books or watch other performers, go watch other people. There's a lot of talent
here in Buffalo.
Yeah.
A lot of good talent.
Yeah, Babushka is a totally improvised show that Don Gervasi does, and his partner Todd, their performing partner, and they're excellent. And to see these guys perform, so I guess we all have to work pretty much or do something to pay the bills, but. I think during the pandemic, everyone had different things they did. Some people cleaned out a junk drawer. I arranged my concert tickets in order of best show to worst show, and then by genre. And I put all my Ozzy tickets together.
So you went complete nutcase, Scott.
Yeah. But, awesome. At the end of it all, when I came out of that black, long, dark tunnel, the thing I learned was a couple things. The first thing I learned at 53 then was to not covet. And I want what other people have. Because, what I learned was if you get what other people have, you got to take their problems on too. And I met a guy, I was in a dive bar. I would say it was a philosopher. He said,
like diving, don't you, in the bars?
Oh, yeah, sure.
What's wrong with sky bars? Why is it all got to be diving?
Yeah, I got to go. I like the sticky floors because then I stay grounded to who I really am, not
that's gross, but
who wants to fall off a building when you just dive into some water?
Hey, shit, we all got a list, right?
And this guy's philosophy was if you put the whole world in the same room together and everyone threw their problems up in the air, you better hope that you catch your own problems back. And, I thought about that for years.
Hallelujah. I'm ready to go to church over here. Oh,
yeah. So those tough days you have, and we all stub our toe and bounce a check and, get decaf coffee by accident or get a flat.
Oh, that's the worst.
But at the end of the day,
if those son of a bitches.
You want what you can't have a lot of times.
Well, I used to do it. I'd pour coffee, decaf, once decaf can't really hurt anybody.
Oh, that'll screw you up. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a friend who was in a funk, and I said, you know what you got to do? Watch the news, any channel tonight at 6:30. and watch a kid carrying a bucket of water from an old Kendall oil change pan back to his hut to drink, and that'll reset your butt real quick, won't it?
Yeah.
Well, aren't you glad we're talking about comedy here?
Oh yeah, it's funny because
comical.
It's weird how life can really be used towards comedy. Because here's Tio and I, right? Him and I haven't always gotten along the best when doing this podcasting thing. I had to learn more about him as a person. Likewise, I'm sure on his end. But I've learned that he still has the ability to set me off like a time bomb. And I've found more constructive ways to ground him when he gets holier than thou on me. And last night we had a disagreement about something. I can't remember what it was. It was stupid, like best friend disagreement. And I finally wrote back to him, "Why don't tomorrow you sit on my side of the studio, host the show, handle the buttons, and do all that?" And he goes, like, "That's not my thing. That's your thing." And then all of a sudden we were back at even playing ground.
Like hitting Control-Alt-Delete, restart the computer.
Yeah.
You need to come around.
Do it. I don't care.
Yeah. That's something human instinct has. The animal kingdom, they know who's their friend and who's their foe. Maybe other than the elephant. They seem to, you're a gorilla for sure.
Yeah, I'm a nut. Your fights. You got to pick your fights.
Well, we have disagreements, but they go away quicker now than ever. Whereas years ago, I would be like, I wanted to kill him for a month and I wouldn't talk to him for 6. But now it's like, if he makes me angry, I'll just be like, dude, I can't talk to you right now. And I'll come back with something constructive to try to make something productive out of it. Because he knows that he can't handle the computer and the technology and all that stuff. He'll tell you that.
Yeah.
We all know what we're good at, We all know what we're good at. Like some people say, to stand up in front of a room of, 1 to 600 people, there's just, no way. And how could that be a safe spot for someone? So, we all have our skills. And, I tell people, I say, man, I got no idea how to repair an air conditioner. Like you got a skill like I don't have. Or whatever it might be. How to fold a fitted sheet, how do you do that stuff?
Oh, and there is a way too. If you go on to YouTube and type,
there's
folded sheet,
a hack for everything.
Easy. It's just not easy when you turn the video off and somebody else
try it.
There is a way to do it, and it's unbelievably easy. But it takes 2 minutes of your time going on YouTube to watch the video, but then to implement it. It's just one of those things that never happens.
You have to do it about 100 times.
Well, it's like the tent. We go camping. He opens up a 25-room, tent, and it's huge. And the original packaging, you're looking at it going, "How the fuck is that gonna?
How the hell you got that big tote? It came in that bag." I said, "You try putting this thing back in that bag."
Yeah, I can't get that folding chair back in the cylindrical tube to carry it back to my car.
There's no chance.
With my low self-esteem after some cover band with $8 beers,
God, you're worried about 18 people watching you try to put that thing back.
You got to lay on the zipper and hope that you can pull it another inch.
It was like a girl putting on Jordache jeans back in the day.
Pliers.
It's a tough business.
That's true.
They lay flat on their backs and use pliers and pull them up and
pin them right at the bottom.
Oh,
can't get in or out of these.
Days. Holy cow! How many pins did you put in your pants?
Just one, and it hasn't gotten any bigger since that either.
Hey, boom, shakalaka. 50.
I think with the fitted sheet, though, Franklin, most of us guys only got one. So, you pull it off and spend a half a day with the mattress and, watch that reflect off the sun coming into the apartment, and then put it back on later if you don't run out of quarters and it's still damp,
Yeah, I haven't had to wash sheets in 4 years. So,
flip it over.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at over here.
It's like a tablecloth at a bad restaurant.
Yep.
Yeah, there's not even a second spot for a toothbrush in my bathroom for 4 years now. I got rid of all the extras. Yep.
I didn't know they sold single toothbrush holders.
They do now.
Jeez.
Huh.
It's called the old cup that you're not using.
Oh, okay, the Dixie cups.
Yeah, well, yeah, I upgraded to Tupperware.
He still has that old thing to dry your hands in his bathroom, that towel rack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like the barber towels.
Yeah. It's like it's like a petri dish hanging from 2 different rolling pins,
It's clean, I swear.
Yeah.
I just sanitized it.
The little blue line that runs along the side makes me feel so much more sanitary.
Yeah. Well, it's like that scene in the movie Knocked Up. Katherine Heigl and what's that other guy's name? Oh, he's real funny. But the sister is gonna buy them a crib, and they're at this store, and the crib's like $5,000. She's like, "Oh my god, I get that crib out of the Alien and use some Purell on that shit, clean it up,
Yeah.
sanitize it." But I mean, that's part of my getaway kit: duct tape, Purell, and some clean underwear, and I'm off down the road, and some money in my bank. I'd be all right.
Couple zip
Yeah, you're
ties.
pretty good. You could head out
Yeah.
with Bear Grylls and conquer the world with that duct tape.
Yeah, and just tell people I'm a Bills fan; they'll stay right away from me.
Yeah, that's an international thing I've noticed. I've goofed up where I wasn't far enough away from Western New York, and I'd say go Bills, and they'd look. But at a certain point, once you get far, if depending if you're say in the Dominican and you see a Bills show, you say go Bills, and it's cool. It's quite a phenomenon.
It is actually
wearing them. I was like, "Oh, go Bills!" Yeah, get it.
Well, who was it? Yeah. I think it was at the Super Bowl last year. They had a guest host for the Super Bowl, the main characters of Breaking Bad, Jesse and Walt. And Jesse actually said that he thought the Bills were going to go to the Super Bowl and win it last year. So I mean, there's Bills fans everywhere.
Meth
West
picks
Coast.
Us to win.
Oh, jeez. Boom. That was a good series, but what a weird. They sell rock candy in that area now. It's colored blue. It's rock candy. Now they're actually promoting the use of, sugar.
Money talks.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of football, I wanted to tell you about this crazy new show coming up. Ironically, it's the weekend before the Bills opening game, of which they're playing on Monday night, right?
Yep.
They're playing the Jets. So this particular show, it's called Interception, and it is a mystery style show. It's not a murder, this one, but it's a mystery. It's a train robbery.
Okay.
Yep. The weekend of the 9th. And
so that's going to be the 9th and 10th. It's at 1:00, and it's tickets are $40. It doesn't involve a dinner or anything, but it's a vintage train, an old vintage restored train like you saw in the old cowboy movies. And it has a bar car, which is a great car because it's an open bar too. Well, not open bar, but you can buy alcohol, beer and wine. They have nachos and stuff and other food and souvenirs. Then the other cars are your standard, train car where you can face people and ride. And so cool. This show, it's got a football theme. There's going to be a guy named Pickles who is a disgruntled equipment manager. There's a turncoat Jets fan. There's a Ron, what was his name? Majewski, who is a fan who's ticked off. They never got to the Super Bowl and he can't get tickets. I have, there's a helicopter parent who's concerned about concussions. So all these different characters there. There will be the coach of the Bills, and his name is Shep McDonald.
Well, that's a good coach name right there.
Yeah. So we're going to call it the local team, and the local team is going to be playing a game against the New York Flying Machines. We violate no copyrights or make no assumptions. And the cool thing about this train, it goes from Hamburg on Scott Street on the Buffalo Cattaraugus Jamestown Railroad on a slow roll, maybe 20, 25 miles an hour, all the way to North Collins. And along the way, there's going to be, it is, yeah. And then the train, they do a 3-point turn in a cornfield where they actually take the engine around and they pull you back.
Create a crop circle for T.O. and his conspiracies. Is that is that the right website? I put there in the cookie ticker, Rich, Western, WNYimprov.com. Is that where the information can be found?
Yeah, we got the com, we got the org, com and the org. And
net.
We take most of the suffixes. And then the Facebook page is a little fresher, updated with current stuff, and the link, the BCJ, and be careful with how you type it.
Yeah,
it's BCJ Railroad.
You'll be on the list.
Don't do BJ Train, or be careful.
Kid friendly, not the BJ.
Yeah, not the website.
Is there a sticker indicating color coding?
Yeah. Really, it's got to be clean, and that is actually a clean show because there could be kids there and people.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah,
I'll send T.O. out on the road. We'll do a raw live on the road with T.O. Let him.
Well, I've been on a couple of those trains. We did the Frozen one. My family.
Oh yeah,
that was a good one. We also ride that train East Aurora there. That goes.
Sucker. Another known one.
Yep.
So we'll see how that goes. We're also doing they like the murder mysteries. It's funny when we have a robbery show or a murder show, the murder outsells the robbery shows 2-to-1 and twice as fast.
That's what my wife would like.
You know,
the murder mystery.
Murder mystery.
And the murder one on their site is November 11th and 12th. So they have these fall foliage rides and Halloween rides. And the last year we did one where we stopped it and people jumped off the train that were performers and running around. It was pretty crazy. So
that's improv.
Yeah, that's different. I mean, it's a lot different than a stand-up stage to work a moving train, and we have to be creative and cognizant of like when the arms go down and the whistle goes off. You can't really deliver lines with the whistle blast, and so 14 minutes into the ride, we hit where there's no whistle. So and go to the bar for 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I did put there in the fortune cookie for those of you that are watching or want to watch the replay. WNYimprov.net. I did update that. And we're pretty much out of time here, Rich. I do want to thank you for being here and joining us for a special night of Raw Live. It's been great. You're always a great guest. You're definitely always welcome. You're a friend of the show. We might try to send Todd out for that show. Anybody looking for information, go to the WNYimprov.net, or you can ask me at rawlive.com and I can get you the information from Rich Lambo. But Rich, thanks, man. It's always a blast. We have such a history, and my stomach still hurts from some of the laughs we've had. So thanks for being here, and we will definitely catch up in the future. And good luck with your train show coming up.
Yeah, thanks, Frankie. Thanks, T.O. Good to work with you today. And thanks for the good word on that. And it's always a pleasure to see you guys. It's funny how we keep it pretty nice and clean here, too.
Yeah, we still got a future to come, and it's coming, right?
All right, brothers.
Anyways, thanks, Rich. I appreciate
Peace.
you. And thanks, everybody out there. If anybody has any questions about the show, definitely hit us up at rawlive.com. We'll see you all next time.
All right. Later.